When we used to take trips to Ukraine, one of the things that we would do is train our people that would go and warn them of something that's going to happen. One of the things that would happen was we would go and you would land there and you would begin to interact with people who most of them don't speak your language, they speak a different language. And there's something that happens in your brain when you encounter people that can't understand your language. You begin to just kind of form this opinion that they're not as smart as you. And the tendency is when you take a trip to a foreign place, especially as a missionary or as someone going to serve a church, that when people don't understand your language and you don't understand theirs, you begin to put up a barrier because, well, they're not smart enough to understand me, or I'm not smart enough to understand them. And you begin to have this tension and this friction between you. So it's something you have to be aware of. And I think the whole concept of making people in your brain seem dumber than you or you dumber than them because they're different is just a natural kind of coping mechanism when we bump into people who are different than us. And we've been talking about our primary identities this week, that when you choose to follow Jesus, you've been given a new identity. The old you is gone and there's a brand new you. The problem though, is that old you likes to pop his head up every once in a while and interact with people and just see how things are going. And you have to make a conscious decision to act either from your old or your new identity. And part of the problem is when you bump into people in this world who are different than you, they speak a different language, or they have a different skin color, or they have a different belief system, or they vote in different political parties, then what happens is in your brain you begin to build this barrier because we're afraid of people who are different than us. They intimidate us, they scare us. So we either make it feel like, well, we're dumber than them, but more than likely what we do is we just assume, well, they're dumber than us. And so we build up this barrier, we build this wall between people that are different than us. The problem though is that you are a Jesus follower and you have been called to love all people. Not just people who vote like you, and not just people who talk like you, and not just people who look like you. You see, when we choose to interact with the world from our secondary identities, I'm a white English-speaking man, when that's the only way I interact with the world, then my little world gets very, very small because not everybody is a white English-speaking man. And when I bump into somebody who's not, my natural tendency is just to dumb them down and not love them. It's to be afraid of them. And if you follow anything on the news or social media, you know that people who are different than us, we hate them. We don't like them. We want to do everything we can to make them look worse than us. But as a Jesus follower, your primary identity is not white English-speaking man or whatever you are. Your primary identity is child of God. And when that's your primary identity, when that's how you interact with the world, it leaves so much room. It leaves huge margin for people who are different than you. That's how we learn to love. We learn to love not because we love people who are like us. We learn to love people who are different than us. It's a challenge. However, when you follow Jesus, not only do you get a new identity, you also get His Spirit. And His Spirit enables us to do things we would not be able to do on our own. His Spirit is what powers your new identity, that you are a new creation, you're a child of God, and you can learn to love people who are different than you, and even people who disagree with you. Because if you see everybody else as a potential child of God, there's room for you to love. So, all that being said, everywhere you go today, you will find somebody who's different than you, who disagrees with you. The challenge for us is to interact with them, not on our secondary identities, but as children of God. So go out there into the world today and just be a child of God and interact with people from that base as a child of God. See ya.